Let's talk about hip pain. And why I'm going to talk about hip pain is that I had to take a week off from squats and deadlifts because my hip has been bothering me. Bothering me to a point where sitting down in a chair working on computer stuff hurts. I'm shifting around. I can't sit for more than 20 to 30 minutes. I'll admit it's been getting better since I've backed off. But what I've learned also is that I've been doing too much powerlifting stuff, too much squats and deadlifts. Essentially, nothing wrong with doing lots of squats and deadlifts. It's just a problem if that's the only thing that you do. So what I started doing, or what I decided to do for my deload week off of those two movements, was to just do a bunch of lunges. I did 200 lunges on Wednesday, and then 200 lunges on 300 lunges on Friday, so 500 lunges. And I've never been so sore. I haven't been this sore in such a long time. And one thing that I did learn is that my quad hurts. My left quad hurts more than my right, which confirms the fact that my left quad is weaker than my right quad. I always known that my left hip or left glute complex is much stronger than my right. I also noticed that when I focus on lunging and really trying to keep my heel down and push my knee forward, I get a little bit of stretch effect in my ankles. So it helps promote more knees forward to help improve ankle flexibility. Didn't have a whole lot of hip pain. So what have I been doing to address hip pain? Well, there's the rolling where you get a tennis ball or a softball or a baseball and you put it kind of in your gut and you lie on the floor with it. That's sort of been helping. It's good for instant relief. I'm not sure how well it's been doing for like long-term relief. I still do it from time to time, and I have been, but it's kind of hard to tell how much is working. I do know that when I squat and deadlift, the pain is worse. It's not a lot worse, but it's definitely a little bit worse. So I can still do stuff, but I'm just going to have to stick to doing more unilateral movements, one-legged movements. And although I've just signed up for my meet this past weekend, so we're committed, the Memorial Day weekend, the 30th and 31st, that's what we're training for right now. I have this little issue. So how can you deal with hip pain? Well, I mean, you have to really look at kind of like how you stand, and you also have to kind of consider what it is that's giving you issues as far as like your daily activities, like how do you sit? Not just sitting, but just how do you sit? How do you stand? Like if you're on a standing desk, one of the things that I've noticed that is that what helps my hip flexor, my psoas, it's very specific. It's my psoas. It's not just my inner thighs. It's or my adductor magnus or my pectineus rectus femoris. It is my psoas because when I hang myself from a dip bar and relax my body at the bottom or below my hips, I can feel a stretch on my left side, and it kind of hurts. It feels good to stretch, but I don't know if it's really making it better. So I do know that my left glute and left side is stronger and that my right ankle is very tight. So when I squat, I shift to the left, especially under when I get really tired or when I'm near max weights. If I'm tight in the stomach and I'm really focused, I don't shift a ton. I don't shift at all, actually. But when you have a lot of movements where you're starting to shift and compensate, that's kind of when you start to grind the gears, so to speak. And in my case, because I'm squatting and I'm trying to squat below parallel every single time, that shift is probably causing me to collapse on that psoas. I can't really explain to you exactly what is happening as far as what causes the issue, but this left side has always given me issues. And one thing I do know is that when you don't have good hip range, or I should say, with what I understand, is that my right hip flexor and hip area is tighter than my left because of my right ankle being tight. So then when I squat, I shift to the left. My left side is much stronger. I can get better hip flexion. I can bring my leg up higher and I can get into a deeper squat on the left side. So in a way, because I'm missing range in my right, I'm shifting to the left, and with lots of weight, lots of reps, I'm getting a lot of compression in that psoas. It might be getting squished in there with the bones. I'm not exactly sure if that's what's happening, but it's definitely making it so that whole side is stressed. Now, if I was just doing bodyweight squats, I would be probably totally fine. But because I'm squatting and deadlifting, it kind of exacerbates the problem. And what really actually caused it to get injured in the first place was running. For whatever reason, I got ambitious and decided to start running. I was able to run 3 miles in like 28 minutes, which is something I haven't done in probably about 3 or 4 years. I ran pretty hard. And after that day, it was like, I think February 25th, it was almost a month from the day. 2 more days and it'll be a month. That's when it started to bother me. And when you have a bad motor pattern, you have issues, and you're a broken leopard like me, if you start to add speed, repetition, miles, weight to the system, and your system is jacked up, it makes the system work funky. It's kind of like having a bunch of wheels on a car that are crooked. You know, one could suggest that I need to focus more on corrective exercise and work on my imbalances and mobility, and I am. That's what I'm going to do. But I want to talk about it because we want to improve it. So one thing's for sure, snapping hip. I get some snapping hip because I don't know if I can make my hip snap. Oh, you can probably hear that. Yep. See, my hip is snapping right there, right? Snapping hip. So now if I shift to the right, meaning center, because I have a tendency to shift this way. So if I focus myself and stay center, tighten my stomach, and I come down, my hip snaps, but only on the right side, not the left side. So let's go see if I can do this. So there's less of a snap. There's no snap now. So snapping hip on the right side still. Left side is where it's more abrupt. I've noticed that the hip has been bothering me because it's been snapping. It's typically when snapping hip syndrome is when the psoas actually slides over the psoas tendon slides over like I want to say the acetabulum or the ball of the femur. Anyways, I'm just sharing my observations. I'm not a physician or therapist. I just know what hurts and I know what doesn't hurt. Because when you have pain, it's very gradual. It's not like, oh my God, like the proverbial hay that breaks the camel's back. It's like, oh, I did this squat wrong. I tweaked my back. It's like before you tweak your back, typically you do a bunch of bad things or poor motor patterns that lead up to it. My hip that's bothering me, there's a good chance that I was doing some bad things leading up to it. And in the case of running, something that I'm not used to, made my system get all jacked up. And one thing that you have to kind of consider is how much asymmetry you have. And what that is how much imbalance you have between left and right muscles. It's learning that, if you have a tendency to shift to one side or you can go lower on one side in the hip, that means that one side is working a lot harder while the opposite side is not. And it's going to cause some issues in the knee. It's going to cause some issues in the back. It's going to cause a lot of overuse when there's a lot of heavy weight. The problem is in powerlifting where you're doing single reps or you're not doing a lot of rep work, this is the reason why I don't get hurt in powerlifting is because I tend not to get hurt because my repetitions are so low. But then when you add running where you're repeating one leg in front of the other over 28 minutes, that's a recipe for disaster. Whereas if I do singles for deadlifts or doubles for deadlifts or doubles and triples for squats, rarely ever get hurt. Minor knee pain maybe once in a while, maybe a little impingement every occasion, but not a lot. And so that's just why it's important that you learn where you're crooked and you try to address it. One thing that kind of help you out if you're having some issues with a snapping hip or something shifting to the side is when you shift to one side, it means a lot of things, but I'm gonna oversimplify it for you so you can kind of try to focus on things. What that means that the inner thigh and adductor of the side that you're shifting at is very, very tight. It's pulling your pelvis down and making your body collapse to that side. And then on the opposite side, in this case, this side here, the piriformis is very tight, making it difficult for you to even go down that side in the first place. So it's hard to say exactly what's wrong, especially in an overgeneralized example in this situation. But the one thing to consider is that when you brace your abdomen very, very tight and you have a load that's about 70 to 90%, above 70% on your back, and your core is tight, you're going to almost automatically center every single time. The problem is if you're not tight enough, you don't create enough pressure, you don't have good spinal stability, you will give up some spinal integrity, shoulder stability, causing you to sort of take a path of least resistance, which will ultimately allow you to lift the weight, but cause you to sacrifice some form and technique or sacrifice good technique or a good motor pattern, which will lead to basically grinding gears, like I said earlier. Now, I talked about snapping hip, I talked about stretching the psoas, I talked about asymmetrical weight shift. This video has gone longer than I thought, but anyways, wanted to share this thoughts of hip pain and snapping hip, and then also just how I'm dealing with it. If you'd like me to talk about something else, something related in this video, please leave a comment below and I'll make one. I don't make a whole lot of these talking videos. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.